I stayed up late last night, at least from my perspective, it was somewhat late. I get up early in the morning, so I tend to go to bed really early. But I wanted to catch this fellow, Devon Nunes, on Bill O'Reilly's program on the Fox News channel. The latest screaming and wailing and gnashing of teeth coming out of the liberals in this country is about this fellow Nunes getting a hold of some documentation that shows, indeed, there were people spying on Donald Trump and his associates, as Trump alleged a month ago, and Trump was, well, almost a month ago, I guess it was. Trump was called out by media, liberals and media, but that would be somewhat of a repetitive comment, wouldn't it? It would be redundant. Trump was called out, and everyone said, "Where's your evidence?" Well, apparently evidence does exist, and Nunes got to see it earlier this week during a trip to the White House. Now, if you're a liberal working for the Obama White House, or you are a liberal who worked for the Obama White House, and you leak details of these things to the Washington Post and the New York Times, you see, that's a good thing. If you're an actual sitting member of the government in this country and you actually see something and then you go out and explain it to the media, then that's a bad thing. You understand how that works? Because Trump no good, so you no good. Although Obama good, so any leak coming out of Obama's people is good. That's the mindset, apparently, that works with all of this. I got to see this fellow Nunes last night, and can I tell you something? After listening to him, there's a very simple explanation as to why all of this happened. I have some short sound clips I'm going to share with you in just a moment from the O'Reilly Factor on Fox News Channel last night. I do want to mention, coming up a little later in the program, Steve Millington, the chairman of the Twin Falls County Republican Party, is going to be joining us, and he's going to be talking with us about the final throes of the state legislative session in Boise. A lot to talk about there, obviously, and we'll be getting to some of that a little later this morning. But this Nunes story has what they would like to say in media, it has legs. That means it's something that's going to be talked about for a long time, albeit media likely is going to try its best to ignore some of the most basics in order to try to convey the idea that this guy is somehow a criminal. He was joining O'Reilly last night on The Factor and explains that unlike the calls from the liberals, he isn't going to go anywhere from his committee that's looking into these allegations.
Adam Schiff, the ranking Democrat on the Intelligence Committee, he's not your friend. You know that, right? He's not your pal.
Well, look,
He wants you out.
I try to say nice things about people. I know sometimes I say things that I probably shouldn't, but the reality is that I'm not going to disparage anyone. I'm going to continue to work with people.
And you're not going to quit. So he wants you to quit the investigation. You're not going to do that.
Yeah, well, I'm sure that the Democrats do want me to quit because they know that I'm quite effective at getting to the bottom.
All right, well, let's hope so, Congressman.
Right, if he quits, we might not get the truth, and we Democrats say that would be a good thing. But we want to warn you about fake news. Yes, be very aware about anybody out there telling you the truth, because we Democrats can tell you it's fake. Nunes went on to talk a little bit more about this, and that's the actual pronunciation of his name. Kimberly Guilfoyle, who had a father who was from Ireland and a mother from Puerto Rico, calls him Nunez, which would be, I suspect, a Spanish pronunciation. But yesterday I was watching The Five on the Fox News channel, and they had called the congressman's office and said, "How do you pronounce his name?" And somebody at the office said Nunes. So not Nunez, but Nunes. He explained that his actions, and this is, I think, what should shut the liberals up. If you listen to this next clip, it's about 50 seconds long. You would think it would shut Lefty up because it's so obvious. It won't, but take a listen for a moment.
Last week I found out that there was additional information that came forward to me that had nothing to do with Russia, but has everything to do with whether or not Americans were masked properly or, in fact, unmasked. And I'm very concerned about that.
By surveillance, and Trump people were involved. But here's what happened, in my opinion. You went to the White House to look at these documents, at least on White House grounds. All right, and then all the people who don't like you and the conspiracy people say, "Oh, Trump gave it to him because he went to the White House to look at it." And the optics, as they say, were not good. Is that accurate?
Yeah. So look, we go to the executive branch at least once or twice a week. This is not unusual because there are intelligence products that we don't have access to in the House of Representatives.
Did you hear that? We go there once or twice a week. This is routine. We go there because Look, folks, remember that story a couple of weeks ago about the Secret Service agent who left a laptop on the doorstep, went inside, forgot it was outside, and the laptop got stolen? Do you really want someone in government who's got all of these confidential details on a computer saying, well, I'm going to tuck it under my arm and go over to Capitol Hill. If I stop for lunch and leave it behind, don't worry, we'll find it sometime. So they don't transport a lot of these details. And remember, even if you had a link between Capitol Hill and the White House in this day and age, someone would hack into it. So they have a very secure system that is not tied to Capitol Hill via the internet, and you're not going to take it on a laptop outside the building and haul it across town because of what might happen. You could lose that laptop or whatever, wherever you have it stored, you could lose control of it. So he just said, and I would love for the New York Times to make it clear to people out there, it won't. We go to the White House a couple of times a week to look at this information. Those of us who are members of the Intelligence Committee or the leaders of it, we go a couple of times a week. It is routine. It happens every week. So he's saying it happens 100 times a year. All of these people are saying, I wonder why he was at the White House. I don't know. I've been there too. I've been inside it on a tour once. Buddy of mine and I were on a tour from school, and we went in, and we had actually bought some fireworks on the street, and we were allowed to take them inside and carry them around in our paper sacks. Times have changed. I don't know that would happen any longer. But there's the explanation, and it is so simple, and it is so clear. And you know, Lefty out there is going to try to obscure that, and they'll make a lot of noise. They'll start screaming, Russia, 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 Russia. That's the fallback position. First it was fake news. Then it was, well, the voters in flyover country are too dopey to get the right candidate. Now it's Russia, 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 Russia. That's all they can say, and they hope that it deflects your attention long enough that you won't hear that simple explanation from the congressman about how all of this happened. They don't want their fellow traveler, Barack Hussein Obama, called out or embarrassed in this situation, and it's going to happen. We have a caller with us. Going to call it 8:13. Bill Colley with you on Top Story this morning on News Radio 1310, KLIX and newsradio1310.com. The telephone number, 736-0300. Caller, you're up next. You're on Top Story.
Hey, Bill, I just had CBS on, and that guy that calls himself a
criminal broadcasting system, right?
Yes, sir. The guy that calls himself a senator down in Arizona, John McCain, was on there, and he was saying that this is unheard of. He's never heard of anybody going to the White House before. And I was like, why don't he call himself a Democrat?
Dementia is a sad, sad thing, especially when it strikes at what was an American hero.
Yes. Okay, thanks, Bill.
Thank you much for the telephone call, sir. Maybe they don't do it in the Senate. Maybe they're just twiddling their thumbs over there and cleaning the dirt from under their fingernails. I don't even know that he could do that any longer. Well, and Lindsay, I need you to come over here and take care of my grooming for me. 8:15, Bill Colley with you on Top Story. We're at 32. Looks like we're going to have a reasonably nice day today. It won't be as nice as it was, at least warmth. It won't be as nice as it was the last couple of weeks. We're in that doldrum period now where it's not going to be too bitterly cold and it's not going to be too warm. I just want to point out the weather on a happier note is brought to you by our good friends at Mountain Home Auto Ranch. For the lefties listening out there, that's in Mountain Home. Got a couple more points on this Nunes business. He says that the intelligence community is avoiding his panel. In other words, folks like James Comey and some of the other individuals and even some of the people who've now retired or were retired after the Democrats lost the White House are refusing to appear. And he addressed that, Nunes did last night on the O'Reilly Factor on the Fox News Channel.
We hope that they'll show up in the future. We don't know why exactly that they didn't want to show up today, but clearly last week there were over 100 questions that they couldn't answer in an open setting. So we wanted to have them back in a classified setting just to set the foundation for this investigation.
Don't they have to give you a reason why they're standing you up?
They should. You would think that they should. I will say, Bill, that the NSA is cooperating with getting us information in a timely manner as it relates to American citizens who were picked up and unmasked in any type of surveillance. So
But the
we're hoping that
FBI is not giving you anything. But I'm curious about this. So you invite them to did they say they'd show up? Did they say, yeah, okay, and then they backed out, or did they not commit?
I think the mistake that we made was, we know that their schedules were clear because we worked with their staff, but I think the mistake was made. We probably should have asked in open setting in front of the public last week just to confirm that they would come forward and help us.
So they're being a little Weasley, it looks like to me. I mean, with all due respect to their position.
This comment caller mentioned about John McCain. McCain and a lot of other people who are involved in all of this, they are part of that swamp. Donald Trump calls it draining the swamp by different names. We've had other politicians from outside the Beltway who've come along over the years and been thwarted by all of this. Cal Thomas has a great column today at Washington Times. Some of you may remember Thomas. He used to be a regular on the Fox News channel, but then he's not a screamer. That is, he doesn't scream and argue with the other person he's having a debate with. He's too polite for cable television, so he got bumped after 20 years with that network. Thomas went on to say, and good old Fox fired him just a couple of weeks before Thomas's wife died from cancer. I guess they probably didn't know that she was dying from cancer, other than the fact he'd made it publicly clear in his columns for a while. His column today, he goes into some detail about how it is almost impossible to change the culture, the warped culture of Washington. So many people are so dependent on a government that is growing by such leaps and bounds, they will do anything they can to thwart Donald Trump and anyone else who is supportive of Trump. And don't think for a moment that John McCain, who's been there how long? Before he was in the Senate, he was in the U.S. House. He's been there about 35 years. These people are so entrenched, they have no intention of leaving. Doesn't matter that the swamp is bankrupting the country. If I get to this a little later, also in the Washington Times today, a writer by the name of Richard Berman details just how bad, how dire the debt situation is in this country, the crisis is. Within 30 years, at the current projections, the official debt will reach $91 trillion. $91 trillion. Think about that for a moment. How can you maintain a country that way? It's a great question. Nobody in Washington wants to address it because it might cut into their big slice of cake. 19 minutes after 8 o'clock. Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310, KLIX and newsradio1310.com. Quick note, tomorrow morning between 8:30 and 9 o'clock, we're joined by one of the medical professionals from Tripp Family Medicine right here in Twin Falls, Idaho. We'll be talking about medical issues. It's your opportunity for you to get a Q&A, if you will, for free with one of the medical pros. And you've got something that is ailing you, this is the opportunity to get somebody to point you in the right direction. Tripp Family Medicine is still looking for new patients, located on Fillmore Street in Twin Falls, directly across from the main post office. And just a quick note about all of that, too, as well. If you go to our website, I have a commentary from yesterday about Dr. Tripp and a comment he made about how great it is to actually be practicing medicine and living in the state of Idaho. Hope you can take a look at that at newsradio1310.com. I was sharing with our upcoming guest that there was a time in this country's history, right after the Battle of Saratoga during the Revolutionary War. The hero of that battle was a guy named Benedict Arnold. If Arnold had died, and he was badly wounded in that battle, if he had died of his wounds, today there would be statues of Benedict Arnold all over the country. Arnold survived, and then afterward, well, we all know what happened. And so John McCain may have been a great hero at one time, but there are definitely some parallels here. 822, Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310. KLIX and newsradio1310.com. We're at 33. A quick note, I wanted to mention our friends at Western Visions, Inc. And I've been telling you that one of these days, shortly, I'm going to be driving out to Cassia County to look at a finished product. Western Visions, Inc. has actually renovated one of the oldest standing buildings in southern Idaho and turned it into a private lodge. And if I could, I wanted to mention as well, they'll do a whole home renovation. They can do bathrooms or kitchens. I love the main room in this private lodge. There's a fireplace built with rocks, enormous rocks that stretches across nearly the entire wall of that room, one of the walls. It's very impressive to look at. And if you'd like to know a little bit more about the work they can do, and I'm telling you, they will consult you all the way through the renovation. It won't just be sign here and come back in 6 months. No, you'll be included as a partner throughout. Go to the website western-visions.com. That's western-visions.com, and you can see more while you're there. We have another caller with us. Telephone number 736-0300. Caller, you're up next, and you're on KLIX. Well, pretty close. You almost were next, and you might still be next, but it's not going to be right now. 736-0300. We'll try this one more time. Caller, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Good morning, Bill. Well, the big picture is that these globalists, including the Rockefellers and George Soros, they want this one world order, United Nations, one world government, and they'll move heaven and earth and roll over anybody that gets in their road. But you have to give credit to Nunes that, he knew that if the committee got hold of this thing, they'd water it down so you couldn't be able to tell exactly what was going on. So he did the right thing, go directly to the president, go directly to the press, because the Democrats are just in tank for, basically distracting this country, as you pointed out so ably. But then you get other people in the Republican Party that have bought into this globalist thing as well, and they're not after our best interests. And the cartoon in the paper today shows the balancing act that Trump has had to do, but I can guarantee you that we've got some great patriots there, and we need to be praying for Trump. And he's not a perfect guy, but I can guarantee you, I think he's certainly on a better track than what we were in signing this climate thing is a step in the right direction.
Hey, I think I agree with you on that one. We get a chance a little later. I've got something to share from the Resurgent about climate issues, and it really shows you that we've been sold a bill of goods on that, and it has been one of the reasons this economy has been so much in the tank over the last decade. Another caller joining us. Caller, you're up next. You're on KLIX.
Yeah, we got all of these from the president and every single person in government collecting hundreds of thousands of dollars every year. And then when they retire, they continue collecting all those hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. How much does that cost every year? How many billions of dollars does it cost them to pay all these payrolls and retires?
Oh, you make a good point. Last week, Peggy Noonan, former Reagan speechwriter and now columnist for the Wall Street Journal, commented that you've got people in Washington who don't understand how anything works beyond. She mentioned healthcare, for instance, the reason that this has become such a debacle. And her comment was, these guys who actually work in Congress, if they need a doctor's appointment or anyone to handle it for their family, they assign a staffer to make the call and do all of that. They're so detached because they've managed to give themselves so many goodies for what they do. It used to be you were a public servant. You did this out of a noble calling. Now you do it because it's a career, and it's a great way to fatten your own or feather your own nest. Steve Millington has seen a little bit of that, too, in his time, the political observer, chairman of the Twin Falls County Republican Party. You actually had an interesting comment about my guest yesterday morning from the other side of the aisle.
Yeah, I watched or listened to that conversation, and in fact, I went back and re-listened to it a second time, and I thought to myself, "Boy, oh boy, this is interesting." The guy had some really interesting takes on the only thing that's wrong with Idaho politics is Republicans.
Well, on the other hand, you would say, and I would say it too, would be Democrats.
Yeah, that's. But it was interesting his take on it. If we could just eliminate the Republicans, then everything would just be sweet and wonderful and great and glorious.
Glenn Harlan Reynolds, who's a writer, he has a column in USA Today, points out, he said, Republicans may be dysfunctional in Washington, but they're doing a phenomenal job at the state government level, have been very successful.
Uh-huh. And that's interesting. In your Resurgent, I think that this morning there was also an article in there about even when the Republicans win, they still think they are the minority party.
Right.
And I think I'm paraphrasing that headline, but I think that's real close. And one of the things that bugs me is, for crying out loud, guys, you won. Govern, govern. Take a hold of the thing and let's go.
In fact, Reynolds said in his column, he said he was having lunch with a friend who said they took control. How come it's not like an airport runaway where they have bill after bill after bill lined up? They didn't.
No. And they from the first part of November, they knew they had it under control, well, in control, and yet they have stumbled around, and it goes back to a statement I made sometime in the past. If you have 50 Democrats in a room considering an issue, when it's all done, they will only have one opinion on that issue. You have 50 Republicans in a room discussing an issue, and when you're done, you'll have at least 100 opinions on that one issue.
Do you know how many Democrats it takes to paint a barn?
No, sir.
11,001. One holds the brush, 1,000 push it back and forth, and 10,000 do the necessary paperwork.
Okay.
We've got more coming up in just a few minutes. With Steve Millington.
Oh, this is going to get good.
He's the chairman of the Twin Falls County Republican Party. That's on the way in a few minutes. It's 8:30. We're at 34. Bill Colley with you as well on Top Story on News Radio 1310 KLIX and NewsRadio1310.com.